Thanks for joining us on Locked On Jayhawks. The quarterback room for Kansas is one that Jim Zebrowski said, the quarterback's coach for KU and co-offensive coordinator, is one of the best rooms that he's had. And that is high praise given that you had Jason Bean and Jalon Daniels in the same quarterback room. Now, we all know there's always that recency bias that we're all kind of victims to. But you look at this room, and I can see it from a perspective of the depth of saying, hey, we have a sixth-year guy in Jalon Daniels. We have a player who I think is overperforming expectations in Cole Ballard, who has some game experience, big game experience, honestly, for KU. We have two, nearly four-star freshmen. In the case of Marshall, a redshirt freshman, quarterbacks that are competing with him that just bring a lot of talent into the room. And it's just a very talented overall and deep quarterback room for KU football. Now, I don't know if I'm picking it over like the Bean and Daniels one, but I guess part of that will just depend on Daniels' performance this year. So if we look at the starter, going through the depth chart, it's Jalon Daniels, unquestioned starter here, redshirt senior. The only thing that would knock him out would be an injury, which you hope not would be the case. Obviously, last year he played the full season, and that was great to see. You hope that continues into this year. It still obviously is in a lot of KU fans' mind, in the back of their mind, though, of like, oh, what if we get back to being, the fully great Jalon Daniels, the guy we saw over the last 7 games last year, the guy we saw in 2021 at the end of the year, in 2022 and 2023. What if we get back to that, but then he gets injured again, right? That would just be horrible, and you hope that does not happen. But for his career, you're looking at somebody who has the second most passing yards, second most passing touchdowns in KU history. He is too far behind Todd Reesing in both to catch him this year. But 5 rushing touchdowns as well from the top 10 on that list, although Daniel Highshaw could jump into that too, so might need an extra one on top of it. But there's a chance he could finish, second in passing touchdowns and top 10 in rushing touchdowns all time at Kansas. That would be quite the feat for Jalon to accomplish at KU. The big question for me, for Jalon, is just honestly the health. Like, I know there is the question of which Jalon are we going to see. The closer we get to the season, the less I'm having that question, because he's participating in fall camp. He got to throw to his receivers in the summer. I think the comfortability with Jim Zebrowski, I think his type of offense that he's going to run for him, I think the receivers having more yard after catch ability. I'm not actually that concerned about Jalon Daniels' level of play. Now, maybe in the back of my mind, I'm a little more concerned about some of the turnover stuff after some of the interceptions last year. But honestly, I think we're going to see a good version of Jalon Daniels. I just want him to stay healthy, especially knowing that the offensive line could, it has a little bit more questions than it has the last couple of years for KU. But I am expecting big things from Jalon Daniels, and KU needs him to have, arguably his best season. Can you do what you have done in small sample sizes over the big sample and be that Big 12 player of the year caliber player? That's kind of the big question here. Now, the 2-deep battle is very interesting as well. Who is going to be the backup quarterback for KU? Now, ideally against Fresno State, you get up enough that you get to see it and you get to throw the backup in there. It's only about a 2-touchdown spread, though. I don't know that I'm expecting KU to run away with it. You're looking to the second game, week 1 against Wagner, where you would ideally be able to put your backup quarterback in maybe as soon as the start of the second half. It'll be very interesting to see who that quarterback is. And it feels like right now Cole Ballard has the edge up, the leg up. Redshirt sophomore Cole Ballard. You have Isaiah Marshall as a redshirt freshman. David McComb is a true freshman. Now, maybe if McComb was sitting in Marshall's case, if he had the year under his belt, the redshirt, maybe McComb would usurp both of them. Who knows? It seems like he maybe even has the highest potential long-term for what KU could get out of that quarterback room. But it does feel like for this year, the backup quarterback job is going to be one of those two, with Marshall or Cole Ballard. And with Marshall, you get a little bit more talent, running ability, athleticism. But it feels like with Ballard, you maybe get a little bit more consistency. And that's one of the things that this coaching staff harps on and cares about a ton. They want consistency. And to a certain degree, that's why there are certain players who are gamers and they're not the best practice players because they are a little more inconsistent in practice. Sometimes they're just testing things. Other times, I don't know, maybe I don't know what it is, but it's just you can't have that same focus. There's stories about Todd Reesing being not a very good practice player when he was the KU quarterback. And that was part of the reason why he wasn't the starter to, begin the season. Eventually he takes over, right? Jason Bean was the starter for the staff over Jalon Daniels in 2021. And I don't know if that's because, it was the same thing. It's entirely possible. I could see Isaiah Marshall being one of those gamers that, maybe Cole Ballard's more consistent day-to-day in practice, but, that'll kind of be the big question. Now, it's also possible, I know some people get worried if Cole Ballard ends up ahead of Isaiah Marshall on the depth chart. And from a standpoint of, would it lead Isaiah Marshall to eventually transfer out? Yeah, that probably would be a worry. But I also don't know, that to me feels like a decision that Isaiah Marshall would probably wait to make till the end of spring ball in, I guess that would be, the spring of 2026. Because at that point, you've competed with him over the spring. But I guess if he's the backup all year and doesn't feel like he's making inroads, he'll have a better judge of that than somebody else. And so that would be a huge loss and feel like a gut punch for KU. But at the same point in time, if you lost somebody because somebody else just beat them out, you tip your cap to the current player now. You want competition in a program. You want the player who emerges victorious in that competition. And there's plenty of time for Marshall to beat out Cole Ballard, even if it's not at the beginning of the season in week 6 or something like that, or later in the year. That's definitely a possibility. But I do think Cole Ballard gets undersold a little bit. I think too often we cling to the idea of, he's a former walk-on. And so this other kid is a near 4-star recruit. That's an indictment of the development. And yet, well, why is it an indictment of the development that the 4-star kid isn't working out when we see all the time 4 or 5 star? I mean, shoot, man, look at Dane Christ and Jake Heaps at Kansas. We see those kids flame out all the time. You know what else we see? We see kids like Rocco Becht. We see kids like Brock Purdy. I don't know why I'm just going with Iowa State examples here. We see kids like Carter Stanley at Kansas develop into something, even if they're not the highest level recruits at the quarterback position at the collegiate game. So maybe Cole Ballard is just Rocco Becht. You know what I mean? Maybe he should have had a scholarship from somebody to begin with, and maybe everybody just screwed up. Josh Allen's only scholarship out of, I forget if he went to community college or not, or it was out of high school, regardless, was Wyoming. People screw this thing up all the time. People develop later. Some people develop when they're 16. Some people develop when they're 20 or 19, So to me, it's not an indictment. And if Cole Ballard wins the job, good on him. And I'm going to start reading into it as Cole Ballard is better than we kind of think. And I'm going to view it from the positive perspective. But like I said, it would still, I think, be an open competition throughout the year. And David McComb might end up being the guy, with a year under his belt. So he would be the future guy to watch. And then you also have Mikey Pauley on the roster to continue the depth as a redshirt junior. So, I think it's just who's going to be QB2. What Jalon Daniels do we get? Can he stay healthy? And I just hope it all comes together for JD and this KU football team and KU football roster. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. Don't forget to check out our David Booth $300 million gift episode because, boy, is that a doozy for KU Athletics, Travis Goff, and Doug Girard. And we'll see you next time anywhere you get your podcast and or on YouTube right here with Locked On Jayhawks.